What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode today here on the Growing Green podcast. This is your host, Jeremiah Jennings, and I'm super excited to come to you today with another great new guest interview. I love doing guest interviews. This time of the year, it's a little easier to get guests on because it's a little slower outside. They're not out trying to bang out as much work as they are in the spring and the summertime. So that makes podcasts really, really good. And the sad part of it is people aren't in their trucks and not on mowers as much. So hopefully people go back and catch up and get caught up on the show so we don't miss a lot of really, really good interviews that we get to do. But today we are blessed and honored to have Sam Gimbel join us from Atlas Outdoor. We are super excited. We got to meet at LAL this year. I followed Sam for a while on socials and just said, hey, I want to link up and get you on the show. I want to try to bring some of your knowledge out to our audience. And I know that you're just a normal guy that has grown a company. You're a man of faith that I really respect, and I'm very appreciative to see what you're doing for the community, giving to a community that has helped you a lot in your journey, I believe. And so today, I just kind of want to walk through the process of Atlas, the process and development of Sam Gimbel. I think there's a whole story to be unpacked here. We don't have time for all of it, but I want to really hit on some key business principles today that I think we can take it away from this show and just translate and put into our everyday lives and businesses that we're all trying to do out there in our entrepreneurship journey. So, Sam, give us a little bit of intro, man. How are you doing today? I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, and I'm glad we were actually finally able to put this together. I know we've been talking about it for a few
Yeah.
months now. We actually got some weather last night. So I was like, oh man, watch us end up having to go out and do some snow stuff. But it was just a little bit of an ice storm and the guys are managing through. But yeah, as you mentioned, Sam Gimbel, my company is Atlas Outdoor. We're based in Flint, Michigan. That's our headquarters. Started the company kind of sort of as a side hustle business, which is a lot like how many people kind of embark into the lawn maintenance journey. But started back in like 07, 08, just cutting grass for friends and family, driving my ZT up and down the road that I lived on, which happened to be Atlas Road. And we fast forward 2010, my wife, we had our first child, we had our daughter, and my wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So she had kind of the corporate job in the HR world. And that was the first, like, we're losing our health benefits, all the things that, it's kind of a nice balance. And I see this a lot in our industry where like you've got a husband that is in the landscape lawn maintenance world and the spouse is like a banker, a teacher, something where she's got the bennies.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives us as men a little bit of a crutch to kind of be like, well, I don't have to worry about providing those things. And because my wife has it, well, nugget number one of this podcast, if you don't believe in your whole vision, then how are you going to get other employees to believe in the vision and want to provide opportunities as career growth for them to move forward? Yeah, it might work out for you because your wife's got some things coming in, but it doesn't work out for them. And my journey was much the same way. So when my wife wanted to quit the day job and be a stay-at-home mom to our daughter, Isabella, pretty much I had a day job, which I didn't have bennies and stuff like that. And then the lawn care and landscape was something that I did on the side, friends and family. And so I just started to pick up more clients to fill I had to replace my wife's income. And so really 2010, I about doubled it as a side business, which was, and when I say doubled it, it was maybe 75 grand, in revenue that I was hoping to create that year to pretty much replace what my wife was making. But then in 2011, we just felt the prompting. I was kind of new to my faith journey then, but we could feel this peace that like, man, there's just a lot more opportunity to go all in with Atlas instead of it being just a side business. I needed to quit my day job and just focus on the business. And I had put a very simple, wrote on a napkin in a Coney Island restaurant, if I at least pick up this many clients, I can replace the salary, the safety net that I was making through my day job. And so I'm like, I can do this. And it was wild when I made the decision to go all in. just going onto social media and letting like my friends know in our community that, hey, I'm taking this business full time. If anybody's looking for landscaping, looking for lawn care, I'm taking on clients, where before nobody believed in what I was doing because I never marketed. It was a side thing that I did to make extra money, and I never pushed to grow the business. So just that very first marketing post, I think within about a month, and by the way, we started in June, which is like the most oddest time to start to go all in a landscape company, because people have already signed on for the year. And but really, it was myself. I had one guy that was essentially my foreman or my crew lead to cut grass. He was the number two when it was my side business. He's now going to become the lawn foreman. And then I had hired two other guys that were friends of mine that said, hey, if you've got work we can do. And so literally the journey began June 10th, 2011 with 3 employees. I had about 20 grand in the bank that we had saved up. And then I had 3 trucks that I had bought over the years. And so basically it's time to go. I mean, one guy cutting grass, one crew doing landscape jobs. We had about 3 weeks worth of landscape projects on the books. So I knew, like, all right, I got 3 weeks to sell enough work to keep these guys busy, or they're gone. They're looking at me to provide for them. And I think sometimes we need that extrinsic factor of something else looking at us going, hey, we're not going to run out of work, are we? And I'll be honest, I think probably my first 3 years of business were such a blur because I was so focused on selling, because I always approached my day with this little bit of fear that my guys are going to come to work and we're not going to have any work for them to do. And I promised them, I had made a promise to my wife that I will provide for her and our daughter. And I made a promise to these 3 guys that I will keep you busy. And just having those few extrinsic factors combined with a motivated person that wants to work and doesn't want to let people down. I'm definitely a recovering people pleaser. Then I'm like, I will do what I say I'm going to do. And we were all in, man. So, just fast forward to get to where we're at today. First year in business, that was 2011. We did about 300 grand in revenue. It's really our first, not even a full year. 2012, which was now our first full year, we ended up just breaking just over $1 million in revenue. And the crazy part of the story was the next 5 years, we went on to grow $1 million a year in revenue. And so to think that there was like some crazy plan of attack for how we were going to do it, there wasn't. I literally just put myself out there to sell work. I sold work, did the admin, billing, and all that in the evening, and did whatever I could do, when I wasn't selling. And we ended up growing. And today, we've got around 105 employees. Built our dream building, height of the pandemic in 2020. I hate to even use that word, but yeah, that's where we're at today. So I mean, it's been to talk, and I know we're going to unpack systems and leadership and all that in this time we're going to have. But our only system during those years of growth was that we really didn't have any systems. Like that was the system. And I've later learned about business and about the journey that every business has systems. They're either by intent or they're by default. Everything we had was by default. It was just, this is how we do it. And it worked. But now we're so laser focused on efficiency and systems and processes that it's a lot harder to break those bad habits and the things that we did for so long that worked for us. Because the old saying, it's like teaching it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Like we're kind of like old dogs. I mean, I'm only 42, but you had essentially 7 to 8 years of our only focus was selling and hiring people. Legit. Yeah. We didn't pay much attention to finances. It was literally put your head down and go. And so again, we're now a work in progress to really polish things in, and we still have a lot of work to do, but it's a lot more fun now. There's no question about that. So
this one question could be the rest of the show, but I just want, and you can, I want a yes or no. I think I know what it'll be, but if you need to expound on it, you can. If you had to change it, would you go back and change the way you grew?
The answer is actually yes. You know,
Okay,
I
that's
know
surprising.
I know it is yes, and I'll tell you why. Every single thing is hinged on sales. So,
Hmm.
you know, now when I'm whether it's another business owner that I'm helping grow, I'm mentoring, I'm coaching, every single thing for like the first year of our relationship, all we talk about is sales. And they're like, okay, when do we get to building the systems? I want to develop this guy. I want to do that. The problem is it's a lot easier to fix problems around sales. So I think it would have been a lot easier to correct a lot of the mistakes we made had we just had a little bit more of a plan. And
Hmm.
so, you know, when I say we grew that fast, we were driving sometimes an hour and a half to cut people's grass. I mean, like
Wow.
we didn't really put a boundary up on the type of clients that we wanted to serve. We didn't put a boundary up, no pun intended, on the geographical area. Like we knew we didn't want to go to northern Michigan, but we're like, hey, Flint, Lansing, and Metro Detroit, those are all kind of good, busy areas. We'll go work in all those areas. And it taught us a lot about what we're so focused on today with the type of clients that we want to service, the area we want to service. And going back at it, I spent probably 2 years as an ostrich. And what I mean by that is literally like there were so many problems going on that were related to that quick of growth that I would fix them with more sales instead of, you know, taking a step back. So really, when we got to like 2016, 2017, that was when that I got my first glimpse that we had a culture problem.
Mm.
Everybody through the growth was always excited. Like we had new trucks coming in every couple months. Like, so there was always this excitement rallied around the growth, and there should be. But I knew that we had some toxicity in place. I actually, not to switch gears on it, but we moved like, so, you know, Atlas Outdoor, we lived on Atlas Road. It was mine and my wife's first home. It was this little ranch, corner lot, beautiful yard, of course. But when we ended up moving to a city called Heartland, which is where we reside today, and we're about 35 minutes south of where our office was and is now. We moved our new buildings a little bit closer, but we're still about a half hour. And so because I was the sales guy, I was the rainmaker of the business. When one of the first things I was super excited about with our new house was that I had a home office.
Mm.
And so my thoughts was that I can now set up shop in my home office and I can sell more work because I can start my day going and meeting clients and then come home, work on estimates, go meet some more clients. Because I was literally the only role that I still was essentially holding on to was the business development role. And so meanwhile, like there's this cancer happening within the organization. Probably at that point, it had to be 2016 because we were at about 4 million in revenue then. So I remember that. And the story started with one day. I happened to go to the office first thing in the morning. I think a client or somebody was going to meet me there. And I got to the office and there was just this weird energy. Like, and that's that those that know me know I'm obsessed with company culture. And this was the first glimpse. It's like when you don't go somewhere for a while, and I say a while, it was only like maybe a few weeks that I hadn't really been there when the team was there. Like I would go there when everybody was gone because it was much easier to get stuff done. Well, I went there when right around 50 employees were working, and you could just feel that there was this just sickness in the air. And I remember telling my wife, I said, man, at this point, she's now joined me in the business. She's doing all of our HR, all of our recruiting. So, you know, her college education and her past corporate experience was actually a great fit for our crazy landscape business. And so I remember going in that day and there were a couple of new guys and we were dealing with a ton of turnover. And pretty much there's this sense of like, this is just a heavy turnover business. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, we have a fun place to work. We're growing like crazy. We have beautiful equipment. Why would nobody not want to work here? And I remember we were going through all this turnover, and I remember going to the office, and there's a couple of new guys that I knew they were new because they didn't have a uniform shirt on. And I go in my office, the typical, kind of hide from everybody, getting my work done. And I remember these guys were standing there for like 15, 20 minutes. Nobody's talking to them. Nobody's welcoming them. Hey, welcome to our team. And so finally I go up and talk to them. And I said, because is there something I can help you with? And they say, yeah, we came here yesterday. We were told we start today, be here at 7 a.m., come in and go to work. And I said, well, do you know what department you're working in? And they didn't know what department they were in. They didn't know who they were supposed to report to. So they said, the lady just said, show up tomorrow at 7 and somebody will meet you. Nobody's meeting them. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, how intimidating is our business? How intimidating is this industry? And here we are, like we have a problem right out of the gate. So I'm out selling, trying to fix the world with more sales when really nobody was leading the charge. They were getting work done. We're billing out work and money's coming in and all that's going on. But I really later learned that we had some problems internally. And the reason that the energy was the way it was because people were just getting burned out. They all imagine being a crew leader and you're getting new guys, once a week. They come in, they work for a few days, and then they leave. And so I know that was a long answer to your question, but
No, that's
looking
good.
back at it, there should be a number that's what that is your plan of attack for how you want to grow. And then when you hit that, if you go a little bit above that, that's fine. But I think 100% per year is good through about it's like hurry up and grow, and then, okay, back off. And then now let's work on the systems. And everybody wants to just jump in and I want to work on systems and processes. The thing is, when you're a $3 or $4 or $500,000 company, the systems that are going to work for you at that size, once you reach $1 million and you hire your first ops manager and your first admin person or whatever you're putting in place there, everything changes at that point. So why be so focused on systems and processes when you're this size, when really you need to get to this size, build those systems, grow, then do it again, and then do it again. So there you go. There's the long answer to your question.
No, I like that. That's good because that goes to where I was going to go next is the whole you talk sales is like how you grow that business, that first $1 million per se. And that's interesting. It's an interesting conversation for me because we're in that range. We're going to do about 350 this year. And so we're at that size of like, if we want to scale, how do we scale? Is it systems and process that you focus on? Is it people? Is it sales? Like what are those key factors that help you get to that $1 million level or more? And I will say this, like, and I believe I've heard you talk about this on other podcasts before. It's not, I know you know this. It's not top line that matters. It's what you're taking home at the end of the day, because I believe that y'all were doing good top line, and there was a year that you may not have lost money, but you didn't make much money.
No, that was like $5 million in revenue, and we were bleeding cash. Like we solved problems by getting deposits for jobs and using that to fuel the business. And so, and I just to make sure we're on the same page with that. Yes, it's the bottom line that matters, but it's the top line that creates the opportunity. So,
correct, yeah.
like I can tell you, I was on a call yesterday with a guy that did like 450K in revenue last year, and he profited like 150, 200 grand. That's awesome. That's great, right? Let me see you do that when you're doing 1.5 to 2 mil. And that's what holds people up. That's that first comfort spot at that 350 to 500 grand is you're able to pay yourself a paycheck. You're maybe able to put a little bit of money in the bank, but you can't afford to pay an ops guy, 50, 60, 70,000 a year. You're good luck finding a business development person that, that makes less than 75 to 100 grand a year. Maybe you can get an admin, but every time you pay Sally, it's going to hurt. You're going to be like, man, I'm paying you $15 an hour and our phone only rang twice today. Maybe I don't need that role, right? Because you're so focused on it, where if you had the sales to support that, yes, the bottom line, they both matter. They really, gross margin is just as important as net margin.
It sounds to me like you started in a sales role and you really never left a sales role. Like how, when you decided to hire those guys and go and really try to double the business, were you in the field at all after that?
I can, and we talked about this at LAL, and I said it's not a braggadocious moment, but I can probably count on one hand the number of times in the last now 13 years that I've sharpened blades. Like
Hmm.
I knew that was not I couldn't do it. I couldn't
Yeah,
be the sales guy. So I was really focused on a to don't list and the to-do list. So there were certain things
correct.
I knew I wasn't going to do. The very first thing I gave up was cutting grass, even though, man, that was the girl that brought me to the dance. I loved mowing. And so it was really hard to pull myself off of the machine. But back then you could hire a good cutter for $12, $13 an hour. And so I really was only valuing myself at like 130 to 150 bucks a day, if I thought about it like that. And I did, like mower thoughts. You're driving your zero turn with your Peltors on. And I'm like, man, I'm getting phone calls. All these things are going on. I'm not getting the best return on energy with my time.
Yeah.
So, really, the very first thing that I took myself away from was our core business, which was doing the mowing. And then from there, I would do some landscaping. I was our irrigation guy. I was our FERT tech. I plowed. I ran a salt truck, all those other things. But mowing, because it was our lowest margin thing, our man hour rate was $35 an hour. And
Wow.
so I'm looking at that going, I legit could go get a job at Home Depot and almost make that, right? Or wherever, like
Yeah.
that. So it was, if we wanted to grow it and scale it, I knew I couldn't do that anymore. So to as far as production goes, by 2013, I was pretty much, with the exception of running a plow truck, and I still run a plow truck today because it's fun to me. I haven't done field production since 2013.
That's awesome to hear. I think that's a point that I think a lot of guys are starting to realize. That's one that I've kind of been pushing the last 6, 8 months to a year is, and it's kind of the common theme right now is working on versus in your business, things like that. That's kind of the last couple of years. It's been know your numbers. Now it's kind of transitioned into the work on versus in, which I think is good. But how do you recommend guys making that switch for the guys that have been they've been doing the mowing for 3, 5 years of their business ever since they started, and they have one or two guys with them, and they're just hung up. Like it's hard for them to trust somebody. It's hard for them to find a good person. Is what they're like. That's what the excuse normally is. And I like, hey, I understand. Like I've had hiring issues. I've had trouble finding good people. So I'm right there with you. But what is your advice to those guys? Like, how do you transition yourself out of that and just get to that point to where you do focus on sales and just say like, hey, you got to trust our people and you have a different, like you have a bigger goal in mind.
All you need is one person. That's all you need, is one person that you trust, one person that says, hey, boss, whatever it is that you want to do with this, I got your back. All you
Hmm.
need is that one guy. The sad truth to it is most of those one guys, or the number two, as we like to call them, a lot of times they don't survive the growth. My toxic leader that I had early on with we were going through some of our culture things. Remember, that guy was the guy that was in the passenger seat with me, for the 3 years as our business being a side business, all the way to now. Sam's gone. Sam's making business decisions without him, and he didn't like that. He was so used to the way things used to be,
Yeah.
and we're so afraid that that we're going to tick people off and they're going to quit, that we cater to the lowest common denominator in our business, and we do what they think is the best thing for us to do. So if I'm going back and I'm, I'm that guy that's got maybe 2 or 3 employees, the very, very first thing I'm looking at is who's my number two. And if you don't know if you have them, announce to them, hey, I think I need to really focus on selling and growing this thing. And, you guys heck, you're way better at doing the day-to-day than I am. I think you guys should take the production and run with it. And I'm going to focus on selling work for you guys. And if one of them goes, heck yeah, dude, like do it, there's your number two. He just told you about himself. If all three of them are like, oh, we hate that idea. Okay, I'm not saying they're bad employees, but you got to do it small. And that's kind of how I did it. I weaned off production slow. I used to be, I was helping my mowing guy every day. He could rely on Sam to meet him at job sites for at least 4 or 5 hours a day that first year.
Yeah.
And so what I started doing was I said, hey, why don't you, I'm only going to meet you at these 2 job sites a week because they're so big that you need help when we're there. And I say big, they were like $300 cut apartment complexes that we had. And so I would meet them at those sites, but they were already getting used to not seeing me right there. I'm just already kind of pulling myself off. And as long as people are busy enough to where they're not so hyper focused on what you're doing, then they'll take the ball and run with it. So the very, very first thing that needs to happen, whatever it is that your core business is, if you're a mowing company, if you're a fert company, if you're a landscape company, a hardscape company, whatever your core business is or core revenue streams are, and I call core anything that's more than 30 hours a week. It's a core part of your business. You just have to let it go. You find somebody that can take it and run with it and start with that. And if you're, that doesn't mean you don't have to do any production anymore. You still got to be able to pay yourself. If you've only got, I have found that I think the magic formula for an owner to be able to make 50 to 60 grand a year, not doing field production, is 6 employees. That just seems to be the magic number. So granted, if you're in more of a high billing market like hardscapes, I mean, we're like $125 an hour. So if you got 6 guys hardscaping, you can make $1 million, $1.5 million a year at that. But hardscaping is an animal. We're talking maintenance and landscape maintenance and landscape installation. So whatever the core is, if it's more than 30 hours, you're just not allowed to do it anymore. If you've got less than 6 employees, then you've got to pay for yourself somehow. And so whether if you're getting rid of the core, maybe you now become the fert guy. I think we had probably 20 employees before I was able to give up the fert route, because we only put fertilizer down maybe 5 days every 6 weeks was our, like, I could go pound it and get the fert work done. So I can't hire a guy to do that. Where am I going to find a guy to only work 5 days every 6 weeks?
Yeah.
I have to absorb that role. The thing is, it's way higher, bill rate than what our maintenance was. So I'm able to bill like 125, 150 bucks an hour for my time doing that. So I'm absorbing that role. I was doing the irrigation service, which was roughly about $100 an hour. So these are higher ticket things that we did not have 30 hours a week with. I got a little strategic with planning when I was it was getting to a point where I was having to do irrigation like a day and a half a week, and I was having to fert about a day and a half to 2 days a week. And I'm going, man, like, I don't have enough fert to hire a guy. I don't have enough irrigation to hire a guy. I'm going to hire one guy that wants to do both. How awesome is this? So got a guy certified, and he ended up doing irrigation half the week, fert half the week. And as now, guess what I'm doing with my time? Selling, and more selling, as we're building out more irrigation clients, as we're building up our fertilizer routes. It got to a point where he's like, which one do I go do today? Am I going to do irrigation? Am I going to do fert? I'm busy with both. Bam, guess what? We're either hiring an irrigation tech to take over the sprinkler stuff, or we're going to hire a fert person. And I'm going to let this guy decide. Which one do you like doing more? I like doing, if I'm looking back at it, I'm pretty sure he said he liked the fertilizer more, the first guy we had. So he ended up becoming our full-time fert guy. Funny story. He gets like a brand new, like, permagreen spreader. If you look at pictures of our first fert rig that I had a push spreader and I had a hose that I had to pull to spray lawns. These guys got the lap of luxury, but that's just the way it is. So, talking to the guy that's just trying to get out of it, you got to find yourself a solid number two that is going to be the guy that you're going to communicate with what you're doing, what's going on. Hey, we need a new truck. We need to do this. And that guy is going to be the one that's going to convey that vision to your few employees while you go out and sell and make it rain.
That quick question before we move on to another point that I want to hit. That number two guy, you usually see that number two excel up into some type of like a production manager for maintenance. If that's what, do you see that? Does he transition into that role usually, or do you usually see companies
100%.
bring on a new person for that?
No, I actually, there's people that have success with this, so I'm not knocking it. I personally don't know of one in any of my business journey or any of the companies that I've mentored, coached, whatever, where they have had rock solid success bringing in a leader.
Correct.
That role, it's the perfect cultivation role
Yeah.
for somebody that's coming from the field. It really is. Like sales, you're either a salesperson or you're not.
Yeah.
That's something where I've had incredible success with my business development team, where when I did finally, it was the last thing that I removed myself from in our day-to-day was the main sales role. And that's been about 3 years now. And I did bring a guy in to essentially replace me, but man, did I have a hard time trusting him, because it was my baby. You know, I'm essentially throwing him the keys to the family van saying, hey, you know, go
Don't
out
wreck. Yeah.
and he's proved himself time and time again, and he's one of my best guys. And but yeah, that role, I mean, think about that for a second. In a small business, these guys are, when you're coming from the truck, you're removing yourself from the truck and going into the you're going to go sell, you're going to focus on growing the business, working on the business. There's already a weirdness inside those employees' minds because they think it's cool to get to work with the boss. They, you know, it's what they do. You stop at the gas station, you buy them some snacks. It's what we do. They don't ever pay. They never pay for lunch. We're always buying them lunch.
Yeah.
So they already don't like it. Let's go ahead and add on to that and say, oh, by the way, I just hired John. He's your new supervisor. You want to talk about a culture killer?
Yeah.
Right there. By the way, been there, done that, made that mistake. Was in and he's a great guy, and he's a friend of mine even today, but it was an awkward departure. But the first church where I was saved at, I was on the worship team there. And one of the guys that was a guitar player, he was a school teacher. Great dude. Was one of my great friends. And like, he loved working with kids. And I'm going, landscapers, kids, that's kind of the same thing. And I ended up hiring this guy to take over our maintenance department. We had probably about, when he came on, I'm going to say we had about 6 crews that were just cutting grass. And I brought him on to be the lawn maintenance production manager. And I had a couple of really, really good crew leaders. Actually, like my general manager today, who is the highest senior leadership role at my company, he was a foreman then. So he moved his way up the ranks, and he was awesome. And I hired a guy to be his boss. And this guy, like, dude, he had so much resentment towards that guy, made his life a living HE double hockey stick. I mean, because he's like, dude, I could do your job in my sleep. And Sam's hiring you to come in and wear the fancy polo shirt. I bought him a brand new truck. And it was like, I remember when I had to let him go, or in my words, I had to promote him to another company.
That's right. Yeah.
Which actually he didn't get promoted to another company. He actually went back to school teaching, because he's like, this is not, I don't need to be in the service world.
Yeah.
But when we had to depart with him, it was our first addition by subtraction moment, because now the guys that knew me from being the guy kind of out there in the truck with them, they were like, okay, Sam felt like we needed that guy because he thought he couldn't properly manage us. So when I let him go, they all of a sudden, they became much less needy of me, because they were like, we do not want him to do that again. So they're like, hey boss, go sell, we got this. Like, everybody just stepped up. And so it was our first addition by subtraction moment. And, fast forward throughout the journey, the guy that is now my GM, he actually became our first like real production manager. And I mean, he was acting as a general manager even back when he was our lawn maintenance production manager, because everybody went to him for guidance, and he was around, and he had a servant's heart, and he would sit there and talk to you at the end of the day like you were the only person he cared about in that moment, which is like a superpower for leaders to be able.
Yeah.
It's why on calls and all that, I started taking my watch off, everything's airplane mode, because I am so easily distracted. And this guy would literally sit with the other crew leaders and just listen to their problems and listen to the issues they were having with maybe a high maintenance client, and he's like coaching them. And, little, who would have thought then that he would eventually be, the guy that's leading really over, 100, 110 people. And so so that role, man, I made that mistake. I think when your business becomes a certain size and you've got layers and layers and layers and layers between the senior, president of the company and the front lines, like our favorite place, Chick-fil-A. When you're a Chick-fil-A, you've got an owner, you've got the corporate Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia. Then you've got the owner operators of the location. Then there's a GM typically. Then you've got a shift supervisor. Then you've got there's just so many different layers. So in that application, you can sneak a credible production manager in, and as long as they're obviously, you're hiring them for a reason, the people are already not used to seeing the senior leadership of the company. So at that size, it just made sense. I'll tell you, when I brought our first outside big hitter in, it was business development. And mind you, when I was the business development guy, I made so many mistakes because I just wanted to sell and get checks from people and get them on the schedule. And my crews would make up for my lack of details, for better words there. And so when I brought this business development person in, even though I wasn't great at how I did it, they respected me because I'm the owner of the business. And they'd make a joke about, hey, Sam sold this, but he's probably just going to give it to you for free because that's what he does. And so when I brought a high leverage salesperson in, he was like, he really had to prove his worth to the team, even though he was everything I wasn't. I tried hiring this guy. It took me 3 years to get him to have a number and a role that would work. That was probably half my fault because I had trust issues with it, because that was the one thing that I was afraid to let go of. But he came in, and everybody, it wasn't until he had probably $1 million in sales under his belt, and the guys were like, man, this guy's good. Every dots every I, crosses every T. He actually holds them accountable to what he sold is actually what gets done. That was everything I wasn't. So now nobody even comes to me with sales questions and advice. They're going right to him because they know that he's proved his worth. So to bring a guy in, if you want to ruin everything you've built, go ahead. I'm telling you, I don't know of one where it's worked, but I'm not saying they're not out there. But most people, you gotta prove yourself. The right person, the right hire that comes in, if you did hire that person, if they came in and they were smart, my 3 examples of character things are humble, hungry, and people smart. And you can't train those things. So if you were able to hire a humble, hungry, and people smart production manager, they're going to come in and know that they've got to earn the respect of the crews before they're going to get value and growth out of them. But the problem is, most people that are humble, hungry, and people smart, a lot of them own their own businesses, or they're not going to come work for a company that's going to pay them 40, 50 grand a year.
Yeah. 100%. No, I see that side totally. That's really good. I super appreciate the detail in that, because I think a lot of guys can learn from that. As you look at the selling portion. If I'm the owner and I'm stepped out of the field now, and we have to sell. We have to get revenue up because, like you're saying, we need to bring on more guys, but we just don't quite have enough work right now. Like, what are some go-to sales tactics and things that you would do, or you would revert to or give advice on early on in business as you're developing your sales career, your journey, just getting in front of commercial property management companies or whatever it may be, to help grow your business? What are some tactics and things that you would give to some guys out there who are trying to grow that sales process?
Residential and commercial sales are two different things.
Yeah.
So typically, if you notice that the companies that are scaling, what you're going to notice with the two companies is that the ones that are, how do I say this? The ones that are selling commercial typically tend to be, that's what they want. The companies that sell residential always go, well, man, I can't get commercial clients. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's just not working. Nobody wants to hire us. There's only, everybody's cheap in this market. They do work for pennies, right? We've heard it a million times. So the thing is the style of selling the two is completely different. Residential, the people fail to take the companies that I know or have gotten brought in to consult or coach, the ones that know how to leverage their social media platforms, like they're already selling because that's where people live, is on social media. So the residential sales, it boggles me how many people don't take advantage of that platform. If you look back at like when some of the Davy trees of the world, or the Brickman back before it was Brightview, the
Right.
Brickmans of the world, mind you, these guys grew billion-dollar companies when they didn't have social media. Everything was relationships and shaking hands and kissing babies, right? And so if they were able to grow it then, imagine the ability we have now with our ability to be able to connect with millions of people through, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these different platforms. So the thing that you got to know is commercial clients do not find you through social. And I've learned that firsthand. But I've also learned that through my mentors that have $100 million plus businesses, and talking to their business development team, they know where their clients live at. And so if I'm wanting to grow commercial, it's all about relationships. And the thing is typically the people that are the decision makers, like myself in our office, we have what we like to call a gatekeeper, somebody at the front desk that when somebody comes in to sell us a service, they're like, nope, Sam's in a meeting right now. Sam's on a call, and they're like, I'll take a card from you. But that person that comes in is just like every other salesperson that has that approach. So for me, mind you, dude, I was selling a lot of work, and I wanted commercial because in our market, commercial maintenance leads to snow. So I knew I needed to sell commercial work. So I would go out 1 to 2 days a week. And man, take notes. If you're watching this, listen to this. I would find a local restaurant that I could buy food in some type of bulk form. It's got to be good at a reasonable price. So we had this little Italian place in town that you could get a tray of mastacholi. It was so good. And a salad and a loaf of bread for $30. Okay. And it would feed a lot of people. So I actually, Facebook shows me pictures of the day I would like have the back. I would take my wife's Acadia because it got way better gas mileage than my big old truck.
Yeah.
And I would have like 12 trays of this food in the back. And I would call apartment complexes because that's what we're going after. We want property management, we want apartments and condominiums. Condos, whole nother methodology there. But for like multifamily property management companies, I would call and say, hey, this is Sam Gimbel. I own Atlas Outdoor. I just want to drop off a little appreciation gift for you. And they're like, appreciation gift? I don't even know this guy. But Okay, well, how many people do you have working at in your operations tomorrow? And they're like, why? So, well, I need to know because I'm bringing a gift by. Oh, there's 8 of us. So I knew my little $30 gift would feed all 8 people. So I'd put a little flyer on it and I'd put a little card that's like, hey, thank you for allowing me to bring you guys lunch. And I would go from 11 a.m. till about 1 p.m. and I would go hit all these different communities and I drop them off lunch, my little card there. And you're not annoying. You get in, you give them their lunch, you leave them a little card so they can go, Atlas Outdoor, interesting. And you get the heck out of there. That's it. If you don't hear anything within, and I'll tell you, it's pretty rare, dude. But I'll say if you don't hear anything within a couple of weeks, most of the time, whoever the property manager is, whatever, they're going to send you an email and say, hey, thank you for lunch. That was really kind of you. Who are you? So now you've now started the connection.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it was rare that lunch didn't sell us a mulch job. It didn't sell us some flower planting. It didn't sell us a holiday decor, something because people felt like they wanted to give us a little service that they could hire without the higher up who hires them as the gatekeeper. They would give us enough work that they could approve. So it might be $500, it might be $1,000, but I'll tell you, dude, a lot of those clients that I did that for, they are still maintenance clients today, and they give us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in work because now by the next year, you're getting the maintenance contracts. And I think I told this story at LAL when we were there, but that when we got our first business loan, mind you, we didn't have any. I had 20 grand when we started, and going into 2012, dude, we were my little lunches and my little Facebook posts were paying off, and people were wanting to hire us. And it was the first time I outsold our cash. I could not afford to get the mowers we needed, so I had to go to a bank. And I'll tell you, our little credit union gave us our first business loan to buy a couple lawnmowers and buy our first brand new truck. And that was kind of like the gloves were off. That was our first moment of like, okay, we've got something going here. We weren't even 2 years in. Most banks won't even talk to you till you've got 2 years of bank records. But I had enough signed contracts that the bank was like, I mean, I think he's legit. Let's go with it. And so to go back to selling commercial versus residential, you've got to get those gatekeepers to like you, because they're the ones that are going to sell you to the higher up. And so now, like today, this is just super cool. We've got, I mean, humbly said, we have some multi-million-dollar large platform portfolio commercial accounts where we do, 15, 20 communities. What's super cool is my account managers and department leaders have really good working relationships with the site level people. And I have one contract where like me and the main guy, dude, like he's let me like go on his jet. Do we pray together? It's such a great relationship. And he's like, dude, as long as my people are happy, then your guys are doing a good job. Me and you meet, contract time. We go maybe have a cold one night after work, but like our relationship is totally different. But it took me a long time to earn that. I'm not going to get to that guy when the first thing gets, I didn't even know who he was. I didn't even know he existed. So it took getting people to like you on the entry level, because they're going to be the ones, I can tell you this, there were years where I would be the one to submit 3 bids to clients, because they would say, my boss requires that I turn in 3 quotes. So I would call my buddy from Growing Green Landscape and, my other one and go, hey, I need a bid for 28 grand. I need a bid for this, because I had such a good relationship with the site level people. They're selling us on the corporate people. So you got to get the end. You can't be annoying. And it's, you got to be confident in what you're selling. Confident, not annoying. Proud, but not an asshole, if I can say that. Like
Yeah.
there's different levels of doing that there, but it starts with just that, making that connection. And if you go in and drop off a card, there is a really good chance that card's going in the garbage can. You got to take them something to remember you by.
Mm.
And so commercial end, granted, if you're trying to sell a doctor's office, that's going to be a couple $1,000 a year contract. You're not going to do that. That's going to be one where it's literally all about just stopping in, making sure you're talking to the right person. That's the decision maker. The residential side, social media, quit being too proud that you're looking to take on clients. I get so frustrated with my coaching people when, you know, sales start to go down a little bit, and then I jump on their social platform and they haven't made a post in 11 days.
Mm.
Or if they did make a post, it doesn't say nothing about we're looking to take on new clients. We're looking to, like, you've got to humble yourself. There was not a Facebook group in my community that did not know who I was. Every Facebook group I was in there, you know, hey, looking to, I own Atlas Outdoor. If I could do landscape lighting for you, or you put mulch in, whatever it is, you gotta be memorable. And remember, in our industry, there are landscape and lawn companies on every corner. So how can you be more bold and be the loudest guy on the side of the mountain beating the drum so everybody knows who you are? Don't even get me started. We could do a whole podcast on the guy that doesn't logo his truck because he doesn't want, you know, he doesn't want the kids at, or the parents at his kid's school to know that he's got a lawn care and landscape company. How are people supposed to know who you are? Your brand should be everywhere, 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 everywhere. Rinse, wash, repeat. Okay, there you go.
I like it, man. I like it. Let's transition over really quickly before we wrap this up. I know I don't want to hold you too long. I want to talk, if you don't mind sharing, about some type of pay structure for your team members and growing that side, because along with culture, you have to incentivize guys to get things done efficiently and effectively, and so you hold on to more profit.
Yep.
What has been your angle and plan of attack of pay structure to keep guys along for the long run and make sure they do get bought in? Because, like, really what I'm getting at, how do you convince somebody to get a job done in 3 hours when they really have 5 hours budgeted, so you make more profit, but they theoretically, if they're getting paid hourly, they would make less money?
That is such an open-ended question. I'll
Correct.
start
Yeah.
with this. I think prior to the pandemic, prior to 2020, this was way less of a problem than it
Yeah.
is today. Like now, the world is so, people can get a job anywhere.
Yeah.
And so the prior to like 2019 and before, like, I mean, I could hire lawn foremen for $14 an hour, like with the show, you know, we're getting them their chauffeurs and all that. But it wasn't about the money. We would sell people on the culture and the opportunity to grow as a sales tool when people wanted to come in. So I I empathize with the smaller companies that then didn't have any of that. Like they don't have, I've got 3 employees. What's my growth
Yeah.
opportunity? All you've got to offer is money. So ironically, if you're the smaller company, you better be charging more money because you got to pay your guys more money because you don't really have opportunity. All you have is financial.
Yeah.
Looking at the last couple years, man, I mean, money is such a driving factor. Opportunity is big. People want opportunity, but not everybody. And I'll tell you, this has been something that's been a hard truth for me, because when I started to focus on leadership so much, like landscape and lawns that's the business that we're in. That's the tool that drives revenue, but it wasn't that wasn't what got me out of bed in the morning when I started to really focus on building leaders. And for about 3 years, I put all my leaders on the same level, like my GM to our customer service manager, which is just a great way of saying the person that answers the phones and deals with problems.
Yeah.
they're in the same meeting. They're getting the same accountabilities. We're reading the same books. And last year, I mean, I had such a frustrating moment. I remember sitting in one of our leadership meetings and I got up and I walked out because I was so frustrated that people weren't giving me any goals. They weren't reading the book that we were studying. And like all they're just like they're kind of sitting there. I remember I looked at one guy was on his phone. I was pissed. And I got up and I walked out and I went right into my Google Calendar and I canceled the meetings. I said this appointment is, so now everybody gets the email that said, hey, this event has been canceled. And so there's just like this quiet, everybody comes out of our conference room and they're like, nobody's talking. They're like, what the heck just happened? And I had this realization that not everybody wants the opportunity as the other person. So I talk a lot about the 80-15-5 principle. And the 80-15-5 principle is, 80% of employees, in this application, we're talking about employees. 80% of employees do just enough to get through the day. That they're like reptiles. Their only goal is to not die. They don't care about growth. They don't care about everything else. 15% of employees do just above bar. The 15%ers are ones that they might set some goals. They're not going to be lofty goals, but they're going to set some goals. They want to make a little more money. They're going to be the ones that are looking for the extra hours, whatever that looks like, right? But then 5% of our workforce truly are the pioneers of growth. They're the pioneers of movement. They're the ones that when there's a problem, they're the ones you're calling because you want their wise counsel to help you deal with this situation. And so, looking at the 80-15-5 principle, that's where you have to evaluate your business and go, okay, if you have, let's just use for the sake to make math easy, if you have 10 employees, if you've got 10 and right out of the gate that like 7 or 8 of those 10, they just want a paycheck. That's all they're there for. They don't care about all the extra things that you might think they want. And then your other, maybe one of the other 2 or 2 of the 3, they want a little more. They're going to be like, how can I want to see the opportunity. I want to know in 5 years, where do you see me at? But then you've got one person in that 10 that's your main guy, man. He's your number 2. And that's the guy that's going to be like, where's the opportunity? But he's going to want to make more money. He's going to want to see everything. So, I never believed in coin-fed employees. I resented it. If all you want's a paycheck, get the heck out of here because we're not about that. I would always shoot to pay $1 more than our market. So if crew leaders were making 13 at my competitors, I'm going to pay 14 just because I think we're a better company. That literally was as far as it got. We did not offer health benefits until we were 10 years into the journey. It took us that long before I'm like, okay, I've got some guys here that are like career focused. They're having kids. They want a little more out of life. My 80-15-5 was becoming more like 50-30-20. I got some good group of guys here that want more. And so I think everything should happen in a time frame where employees are always looking forward to something. If you've got them thinking ahead, I know when I take my family on vacation for 2 months before that vacation, it's all we talk about. It's all we think about. I get way more accomplished because I'm like, if I don't want to be bothered when we're going to Florida, I need to get all these things done. So as long as your people know that there's something in the pipeline that's going to benefit them, it's not just about the money. They want to know that, hey guys, I know we're working a 6-day work week, but next year we're going down to a 4-day work week. Now they're like, well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to put a performance pay structure in place or something where it's not going to hinder their income, but you're going to get more done. And we've done all kinds of benchmark studies on the most productive days of the week. And if you really dial it down, by Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, dude, those guys are like half of what they were the other days. So
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A mastered that, right? They're open 6 days a week and they still outsell every McDonald's by like double.
Yeah.
So you can get more done in less time. And so I don't think the good employees are not just about the money. They're about the opportunity and the benefits and things like that. So if I've only got 3 or 4 guys, which I know that's the bulk of our industry, the 80-15-5 principle fits our industry. 80% of the companies that would identify as a lawn care company have less than 10 employees. So if you look at it like that, really, what opportunity do you have if you're not going to put yourself out there to grow the business so that those good ones see that there's opportunity? You have to charge more so you can give guys more pay. That's what those employees and those companies want. They're not sticking around your business for opportunity. There is none. You work out of a barn behind your house. Like, where are they going to go? They're just there for the money. So if I am that smaller company, I would be looking at way more ways to build bonus systems and things that if you get a skip out of a contracted client, or if you complete your budgeted hours, if you've got a 5-hour job and you do it in 3, then I'm going to give you 10% of whatever you get done, and the rest, now you can work less and make more. And so I would be trying to maximize every performance pay and bonus structure that you could. Thankfully for us, it was all about the opportunity. But now, like, we have way more profit sharing programs in place and things like that, because we are having to compete with that. Like, somebody that cares the bulk about the money, they will leave and go to a smaller company because they can make more money. So if we're going to compete with 80% of those companies that they'll hire a lawn guy for $25 an hour because they have to, then we have to make sure we're competing with them in the pay side of things, if that makes sense.
Makes a ton of sense, Sam. I super appreciate your input there. Is there anything that we have left out that you really wanted to share, put out there for the audience? I think we could go for another 8 hours, but the day just does not allow for that. So
you know what? I'm gonna give you a nugget that I have been, just something that's been on my heart, that will leave your listeners with this as a little bit of encouragement, but also a way to really make you think more about how you're approaching your day to day. No matter what podcast you listen to, whether it's Tony Robbins, you jump on TikTok, whatever, all the way back to the rap videos, all you ever hear is go big or go home, right? It's what we all go big, man. You got to go big. You got to go big. This is one of the things that I'm learning. And with all the people that I'm pouring into, wanting them to grow, a lot of them are smaller guys that are just, their goal is to just get out of the truck. And when you tell a guy to go big or go home, that's got 200 grand, 300 grand in revenue, he's looking at go big like a $10 million company. There's such a vast difference between the two of them. It's not even in the same building. It's like the hotel lobby and the 20th floor of a skyscraper. So I think instead of making your mindset go big or go home, I think you need to just go small and work on what you're working at and getting a little bit better each day. Quit thinking that you've got to go big or you're failing, because I'm telling you, people just want to survive. They just want, maybe if your goal is just to get out of the truck, the thing is so many people want to talk about systems and processes for sales and business development. The heaviest weight at a gym is the door. Like, literally, your habit, if you want to get on a workout routine, you should actually go to the gym for 1 month, open the door, walk in, hang out for 5 minutes, and then go home. Do that for a month, and then go back again and go in there and go, I'm going to grab some weights this time. Go work out for 10, 15 minutes. Go home, do that again. Same thing in our business. If your goal is to get off the truck, don't think about how you're going to sell and do that. Make the commitment that you're going to get off the truck. Start with that. So instead of thinking you got to go big or go home, I'm going to say go small or go home. 1% every day. Simple, those habits. If you make this year, I don't know when this podcast is going to go out, but if you make 2024 your goal is just to instill the habits that you need to get you just to the next place. Quit thinking 5, 6, 7 tiers of growth down the line. If
Mm.
your next thing is, I just don't want to be the guy on the truck, that is a hell of a lot simpler than building a multi-million dollar business. But everybody, there's no in between growth people that talk about that. It's like, hey, you should use gator blades in the fall because they mulch better podcast. Or if you're not running a $10 million business, you're failing. Go big or go home. Like, there's such a difference between there. So I'm talking to that guy that's just listening to this. That's like, man, I hope I have enough receivables that come in before Friday so I can buy my family food, let alone take them on a family vacation, because that's not even in the forefront.
Yeah.
Focus on where you're at. Focus on the next right thing. And if you don't know what the next right thing is, quit listening to all those motivational dudes that are speaking a language that's not what you need to hear. I'm ready to F all their worlds up in my next 2 years of public talks, because that's what I'm going to talk about. Because all of them want to just go big, big spotlights, 10x, you're 10x, bro, 10x. Like, no, 0.5x is actually better than no X.
Mm.
Because
1% growth.
0.5x or 0.01x done once a week, multiply that over 52 weeks. But everybody just talks about the going big. So you go to those rah events. It's all, I got my badge, got my 10x, I got this book I'm going to read. That stuff never talks about just getting off the truck. Literally those little simple things like that. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll unpack that in another one someday.
That's good, man. 1% growth every day, I think, is a good it's a good basis to go off of. So Sam, I super appreciate your time, man. I am humbled and honored to have you on the show today. And I know the listeners would say the same to you. Where can everybody find you and keep in touch with you if they want to follow along with your journey?
Absolutely. So I'm a Facebook guy. So I know that that's old school for some of these new whippersnappers, but just Sam Gimbel on Facebook. And I do have a personal website, which is samgimbel.com. And I do a leadership blog on there. And it's my goal to help people grow, man. That's God made me on purpose for a purpose. And that's to do stuff to help other people grow, so that's, if anybody wants to follow along, wants to drop me an email, it's on my website, but samgimbel.com. I'd love to connect. So
that's amazing. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the show today. Thank you to Sam for joining us. Guys, if you enjoyed it, reach out and let Sam know you enjoyed it, and let him know that you learned something. Leave us a big 5-star review if you did enjoy it. Those always help us just to continue to grow the community one relationship at a time. But without any further ado, we're going to sign off from this one, and we look forward to catching up with everybody here on the next one.